Well, I want to use the Oliver and my new little mini crane to move the AirCo welder out of the weather, because I'm expecting rain later today, and I don't want to have it out here and have to tarp it like so many of my other treasures that end up being tarped because I don't have them indoors yet. So I've got room there in my tent thing. I'm not going to make the move to the basement with that welder just yet, because that's going to be a more involved project. But I'll be able to use my mini crane to extend that thing and put it way in there. I don't have to worry about the loader being too wide and having to, deal with the possibility of hitting the tent like when I was moving the Hendy lathe in and out of there. But the Oliver's giving us fits. So what the Oliver's been doing lately is runaway, the runaway diesel syndrome. That's where all of a sudden, instead of it idling, the RPMs will shoot up, and you pull the shutdown lever and it won't shut off. At first I thought there was a problem with the cable, with the linkage on the injector pump. I verified that that's not it, and I think now I've determined what's going on here. What's happening is we're still getting diesel fuel. I believe we're still getting diesel fuel into the crankcase. Now I'm pretty confident that my my injector pump's not the fault, because I replaced the whole shaft and seal and all of that when I did the light rebuild on this pump. But just because I'm getting diesel fuel in there doesn't mean that the pump's the culprit. I could have a couple of things going on here. I know for a fact the compression's really low. I mean, this engine's worn. So I actually don't know for a fact. I never did do a compression test. That's coming up. But based on the amount of smoke and everything, and the amount of extreme blow-by that's coming out of the engine, especially when it warms up, I'm confident that we've got really probably bad compression on the cylinders, and a lot of stuff's leaking by. So we could have unburnt fuel that's getting down past the cylinders in there. The other possibility is we could have an injector, or one or more injectors out of the 6 that are in here, that could be giving us trouble. Sometimes the injectors will stick, and what will happen is you shut the engine down, and that high pressure in one of the lines will, that faulty injector will dump that fuel into the cylinder, and it just sits there, goes down the walls of the cylinder, and gets into the crankcase, and over time it builds up. So what happens is, now I've got a high crankcase level. It shouldn't be as high as it is, and the engine's running and it gets hot, and you got all of that slop in the cylinders and everything. It'll actually start to force some of that diesel contaminated oil up into the cylinders, and it'll start burning it as a fuel, and you get a runaway. So that being said, I think what I need to do is I need to lower the level of the crankcase and also change out that fluid. The other day when I was unloading the AirCo off of the trailer, off of the back of the pickup truck, the engine started to run away on me, and that created a problem because I had it out of gear, and because of the bad brakes it started to roll. And good thing I was on fairly level ground, because I could have easily had a mishap there, and I couldn't get it to go into gear because the engine was just screaming. And make a long story short, I really need to address this, because I really can't afford to be on there and trying to move, gingerly along and just have the engine start racing on me. Being that this is a overfilled crankcase on a 6-cylinder diesel, I imagine there's quite a few quarts in there. So it's probably not all going to fit in this this jug. This jug, I think, is 2 gallons or 8 quarts. I don't remember. But I'm not going to open it all the way up. I'm going to let it drip. I like to open the plug slowly and just let it start dripping, because right now the engine's been sitting, so any water should have settled to the bottom, and I'm just curious to see how much water might be in there. I had to go grab some nitrile gloves. I'd forgotten. There, you should have a funnel. Let's see what nasties are potentially lurking in that bottom of that crankcase. AKA how much water. Or IE, I should have said, right? Nope. That's a good thing anyways. One good thing about it. Don't see any water on the bottom of the crankcase. Boy, the consistency of this, I'm not even going to call it oil, the drainings from this crankcase, practically like water. I mean, that's just unbelievable how thin that is. I saw a stain on the grass underneath the front end of the engine here, or up near the side. Add something else to the list, a long list of things I need to take care of. You see the drip forming right there? There you go, it's just dripped. Yep, that little petcock on the bottom there, I know that packing and that was kind of toast already, so I'm gonna have to just replace that little unit right there. Alright, it's just down to a few drips left coming out of that crankcase, but I gotta make a run to the auto parts store because I gotta get a new crush washer. You should really not reuse these if you can avoid it, and to make matters worse, there are 2 of them on here. So last person who did an oil change on this did not remove the old crush washer before installing a new one. You can't use Teflon tape to seal this because these aren't tapered threads. This is actually by design supposed to come up pretty easily. So what seals it is, when you tighten it up, you crush that washer. Therefore, the name crush washer. But if you crush it more than once, it kind of starts losing its effectiveness. Well, didn't get the backhoe oil change done in time to move the welder, so hopefully I can do it first thing tomorrow morning before we leave. But on the in other news, the finally got those copper crush washers off of here. There were actually 3 copper crush washers on here. Seems like every time somebody did an oil change on here, they didn't bother taking the old one off and just kept putting new ones on. I got this new style here because the crush washers are the size that I needed, they didn't have in stock. Well, it's kind of tricky getting the oil in on this thing because the fuel line's being in the way. I got to use my transmission filler funnel, which is got a very small diameter at the end there, and that is making it kind of slow going here for this 40 weight, which is kind of thick. This is 15W40. I would have preferred straight 40 weight, but my local store didn't have it. This will definitely be a big improvement over that watered down, or not watered down, but diluted, fuel diluted oil that I just drained out of here that was the consistency of water. This is closer to the consistency of warm honey. Well, I just checked the level. I just poured in 4 quarts right off the bat, figuring that would easily take that and more. And I just checked the level, and it's actually halfway up to working range. Of course, I have to start the engine and get it circulating. But I am kind of surprised at how small the sump is on this 6-cylinder diesel. Maybe that has to do with, I think that this actual engine block design is also used in the gas engines, and that they just, you know, also use it for diesel. And apparently they don't put a deeper oil pan on or anything because it doesn't seem like that much, as opposed to like you know, the 353, the Detroit. That thing, forgot how much oil that took. That took a lot of oil. Deep sump on that. Of course, that was a 2-stroke diesel. But even the Dodge, the 5.9 liter Cummins in the Dodge, that's a straight 6-cylinder diesel, and that takes quite a bit of oil. A lot more than 4 quarts, tell you that much. It'll be interesting to see if it smokes any differently. Just gonna let it warm up. Well, I just revved it up with the hand throttle set in one position. It was running a little uneven, but then it smoothed out. Seemed okay. Plenty of blue smoke to indicate that it's burning oil. Well, won't know whether or not we got the runaway engine problem licked until I actually start doing some work with it. I also got to keep monitoring that oil level. I'll check it after I shut it down and make sure it's not too low. And then I'll make note of it and keep an eye on it to see if it starts creeping up, indicating more diesel problems, diesel fuel getting in there. As far as the runaway engine problem goes, well, next time I'm going to work this thing is going to be to move the Airco welder and undercover, so tune into that video and see how the Oliver acts.